Hello. How are you
Well,
doing?
hello everybody. I don't know what happened, Nick. I didn't see the intro start. Did we
You
actually
didn't see
play the
that?
intro?
It was playing for me.
Ah, it wasn't playing for me. Well, you know what? The joys of doing things live and coming back, I guess.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. Well, I guess if you're watching, let us know if you saw the intro. But if you're just joining, you missed the intro. So I don't know. We'll figure it
It'll
out
be
later.
it'll be interesting to see if we have any live guests today. I know I put it out there. We're doing an early show. I am going on vacation starting, pretty much after this show. And won't be here tomorrow and won't be here next week. You're going to be alone by yourself next week, but we decided to do an early show just so we could get one out this week. But it'll be
hmm
interesting to see if we
hmm
got anybody that joins in live today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope
Yeah.
we do.
Definitely. Yeah. I think we'll get some folks for sure. And it also doesn't help that I kind of threw this all the StreamYard links and everything together at the last minute. But I guess with this episode, now it's episode 37 of Cloud Foundry Weekly, which is I don't know,
It's amazing, huh?
it's yeah, right, exactly. Um, we're starting, I guess, of our series of celebrating the release of Tanzu Platform 10, and within that release, there's a little subject near and dear to my heart, the GenAI for Tanzu Platform Tile or project that we've been working on, and we figured we bring on a guest from way back in episode 2, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's bring Long back on here. We'll bring him back to stage. Long, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, Long.
Excited. We're GA.
Yeah.
GA. Well, this is going to be a fun show because this is the thing that Nick loves to geek out on the most, right? So we always get more and more on him when we talk about Gen AI. So I can't wait to talk about this show. GA, we're
hmm
officially released. It's an official product now. It's no longer beta. Congratulations, guys.
Yeah, it's been a journey. We started. I started this project like way back April of 2023 when I started seeing ChatGPT and OpenAI. I was like, why can't we run LLMs? So I started getting GPUs working on Bosch, and then I think by June of last year, Nick was like, "Hey, that's pretty cool. We should do something with this." So we entered the hackathon at VMware Expo last year,
Yeah.
and somehow we won. You know, I always thought it was kind of cool to like offer LLM as a service. ChatGPT behind your own firewall was like the goal, and we've been beta testing since early this year, I think February, and we've had a lot of great
hmm
feedback. It's driven a lot of the design. I think this is really a customer driven. They have had different use cases. We're seeing a lot of different companies being able to like use this and deploy this, and like even more companies deploy without us even like needing the help, which shows how simple it is to like kind of get started, get your developers started with LLM. So it's a
hmm
good journey. We're like production ready now. We zero downtime and just kind of air gap support. So yeah.
But you say somehow you won, man. I think you're selling yourself short. This is to use a phrase. This is game changing. We've got a lot of customers that are really interested in this for exactly what you said. It makes things so simple. This turns Cloud Foundry into a generative AI platform, right? So you combine the Gen AI tile with Postgres that we offer on platform. I mean, this gives you everything that you need. And if you're a Java developer, you really can't get any easier. I mean, you guys did something that is truly phenomenal here.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited to see the apps that like come out of all this, right? Like I think there's going to
hmm
be a lot of interesting use cases and apps internally and externally where this will be used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just want to give a quick shout out too. So we did. I don't know if you click on that link there, along, if you can see. But I did write an article back in August of 2023 about the hackathon win, and obviously got to give a shout out to Amelia as well. She was on our team, and she's the gave us some great cat emoji PowerPoint style, and I think that I've always been a fan of the cat emojis since in PowerPoint slides. So props to Amelia for everything she did with the team back in the in the early days of this project, and shout out to Jonathan as well, who was our kind of customer use case and how do we say proof point or whatever that what we were doing makes sense. So there's some good Easter eggs in that blog of some of the really early concepts of what this was going to look like. But fast forward to a little over a year later, we have some pretty cool things happening for sure.
Amelia is a long time friend of the show, but you always know when she's been involved in a PowerPoint, right? So
yeah,
her brand with the cat emojis is something that you see every day. You always know when Amelia's been involved, and that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys.
Where we
GA. So
yeah,
official product now, part of Tanzu Platform 10. So what's different about the GA versus the beta?
Oh, we have a bunch of new things, I think. We started some beta integrations with the different cloud providers. So we have support for AWS Bedrock, Azure OpenAI, Google Vertex. You can set up your keys there, and you can allow your developers to be able to use, let's say, AWS Bedrock, but with one set of keys. So the developers will have their own set of keys, and you're able to use AWS Bedrock to share that. This is important for platform teams where they don't want to share the AWS keys to use AWS Bedrock. App developers just want to use an interface so they can still use the OpenAI interface, but it's actually using Bedrock beneath the scenes. We added rate limiting, so we can kind of rate limit through a certain amount of models. So if you're AWS Bedrock, you only want 1,000 requests a minute or whatever you want to set that to. We were able to kind of have that. So these are beta integrations. We're expecting feedback from customers to improve it and make it better. But it's us showing the power that we're able to broker through and give virtual keys to different things and different services on top of being able to do GPU and CPU models.
Yeah. And what's this AI server I keep hearing about? Tell me about AI server.
So the AI server is a middleware for the GenAI Tile. So the Spring team we've been working in close collaboration with them. It's our commercial version of the Spring AI that lives in the Tile that helps us do the middleware part of it, right? As we evolve as a product, we're gonna be able to do different things, broker and chain LLMs together. Agentic stuff is coming, so we're trying to bring the enterprise and safety and governance to part of all of this. And AI server is a main component of trying to get governance and enterprise readiness.
Well, and let's dig into that. So you talked about you've been working with the Spring team. Is the AI, is it only for Java and Spring developers? Does it work with other technologies?
Oh yeah, so the AI server is developed as just the OpenAI API. So any existing libraries with Python, Spring AI all work if you're talking to the OpenAI API endpoints. So developers aren't changing. They're able to just deploy this. AI server underneath is being able to do the proxying, the translations. We have tool support and all that stuff. So AI server is handling all that for us.
Well, I think one thing too that we could bring up too is that we're seeing a lot of is that I think way back when, right? Even introducing the concept of doing these type of things on CPUs was just not really possible, I guess, or not very good. But I think Long was able to work his magic and try to get things like Olama support added as well. That's really been, I think, a huge game changer for a lot of our customer base because, we found that as we progressed through the beta program that we were getting into this chicken and egg scenario where people were really interested in how to do GenAI, but they didn't have all the GPUs acquired, within their data centers, and that lead time still is, really just getting hardware in general. I would say good at a good day or a good timeline is maybe 6 months, but it's just a long life cycle of going through procurement, getting all the financial funding approval, and then the build out and getting it shipped and power and racks installed and it's an ordeal just to get new gear brought on. So like not having any GPUs was going to be a blocker, but we were able to get CPU working with quite well across a wide range of different VM types or different hardware types with a Llama. So that's been really useful as we continue to onboard new customers, is that they can start out with CPUs, start to experiment, start to kind of prototype some things, may even be able to get some small use cases or workloads running, and kind of one, use that to help justify maybe a larger spend on GPUs and larger infrastructure, and kind of go from there as well. So like that's something too that we've been seeing across the board really in as we progress through this beta program.
And I think that's a huge use case. You've got a lot of companies out there. GenAI is kind of the new darling. Everybody wants to put AI into their products. But you're right. Even though that we're seeing a large percentage of what we're going to see on infrastructure spend from enterprises in the next year is going to be on AI related infrastructure, GPUs are expensive. So how does a developer that's got this great idea get the chance to go out and prove to their management, prove to their company that this is something worth doing, right? And the ability to come in and use CPUs really helps make that case. They don't have to go in and basically invent or create a whole bunch of spin just to do a POC. They can do their POC. It may not be as performant, but it gives them a chance to do that. I think that's one of the things that I don't think we tout enough in what we're doing with GenAI. And I think that's something that, again, this tile should take credit for, is it's opening up AI to the masses, and it's opening up without a huge amount of spend, be it cloud spend or infrastructure spend. And the ability to tie into the cloud models as well, but really private AI, being able to keep that data private, that's where it's really going to get important, because we've seen a lot of breaches on the AI side. Yeah.
And I think also like embeddings is very important towards building GenAI apps. So like being able to split the workloads off to CPU there, you're not spending precious GPUs to just only do some embeddings. It might be a little slower, but you're able to scale that out. You can add VMs pretty easily versus GPUs easily.
Well, and I think when we had Adib on, when he was doing his Spring Hero talk with us, which we've got to get him back on again to finish that up, but that was one of his statements. How do you get started in AI? You just start, right? Well, again, being able to use CPUs, having the GenAI tile, a marketplace type offering where developers can go in and just choose the model that they want to do or play with different models. This is something that allows that concept to come through. You want to do AI? Just start, and we provide that through this. And I guess that kind of brings us up, Nick. So we've got the tile. What does that look like? I mean, how do we get that installed? I mean, what's the setup? Yeah. Surely AI is complicated, right? AI is complicated. It's got to be complicated setting up this tile. It's just got to be.
Let me get my screen share going, and I'll give us some reference points to talk through here. Oh boy!
If nobody noticed, that was my sarcastic tone. This has got to be difficult because I know it's.
Yeah. No, it's not as bad as you think. It's quite easy. Oh boy!
It is difficult because I built it.
Yeah. Well, you made it easy, Long. That's what's going on.
That was the goal.
Yeah. All right. Win entire screen. Let's do this. All right. Sorry. I feel like every time I share a screen on StreamYard, it's like this. All right, let's get out of Inception mode here. Let me pull that over to the side. All right, let's zoom in. This is my home lab, which is continuously growing and continuously at capacity. So thanks, Lon, for this little hackathon project. I brought 10 GPUs just to play with this thing. But yeah, side note.
I'm going to take us out of screen, see if we can see this a little bit better. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Can we go at the bottom? Is there a way to put? Yeah. How about, does that work?
Yeah, we can see the screen now. All right. What are we looking at, Nick?
Let's just vCenter here. So let's go to Ops Manager, right? Let's go back, right? So if you haven't seen this too, this is the Ops Manager kind of got a new skin as well, like a little refresh in the UI. So this is a one of the later builds of Ops Manager 3.033, although I just installed a foundation earlier with 3.035, so still making progress there. But we have the 10.0 or the GA version of the GenAI tile here installed, and some other tiles as well. Postgres we're using a lot as well, especially with when we start to get talking about like the embedding side and where you store those embeddings and things like that. But let's if we can drill into.
I know the first thing people are going to ask when you look at the GenAI tile, it's version 0.0.0. When you look at the GenAI tile, I know somebody's going to ask
10?
It's version. Oh, is it 10?
10?
Okay, I can't see that.
10.
It looks like 0.
Oh. No, we're 10.0, right? With
you gotta forgive these old eyes.
All right. Well, do I need to zoom in more?
There you go. That's awesome right there.
Are we good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So we could drill into here. And maybe some things that I kind of did a little bit of a guide a while ago. Maybe some things that have changed. So if we look at the database config, I don't remember here, but the Long and the team have added the ability to broker directly to the Postgres tile. So you don't have to. Before we had to kind of manually key in. You'd have to manually create the Postgres database and get a service key and then take the service key and put it in here and all the JDBC connection strings. So now you can just give it the plan name and the Postgres offering name, and the tile will just automatically create a database for you, and you don't really have to do anything with that. So that's nice because that saves me time and that'll save everybody time. So I think that's probably new since we last spoke about kind of behind the scenes of the tile config. Obviously, if you have an external Postgres, you could still use that as well. Let's see here. Maybe if we go to model config, maybe some of these things might be newer as well. This foundation, I've been doing a lot of testing with Chris Phillipson and some of the newer work on Sanford. So I've got a lot of models running currently. A lot of them are different variants of Gemma, but this is Olama, so we can easily just instantiate Olama models. Let's see if we drill into here.
It just shows how easy it is to just add a model to start trying to test different things. I think as you start building your apps, you're like, I need this model. I want to try this model. Developers are stuck kind of waiting too long for the platform engineers to add a new model.
Yeah, let's do that right now, right? Because there's another one. Why not just melt my lab even more? Let's go to the Olama library. So I guess another thing too. So on a side or internally, I've been helping a lot of people out install this thing. So let's kind of we can talk about how this works and kind of go through here.
We got a question from Corby Page. Is the Postgres database used for embedding, or is it just for the tile configuration?
So the database is used for tile config. So it kind of stores all this model information and your key, virtual keys and stuff like that. So it's used by the AI server, and that's how we kind of configure everything. So when you deploy, you're not losing all your data and stuff like that. The embeddings itself is for the app developers, but the Postgres itself is only used for storing information for the tile and how we back it up and save it.
All right, so I'm setting the stage here. So part of this too, I want to add a new embedding model, right? So as in addition to all my other models, so a lot of people have just had questions about this. So when we do add a new model, I have to scroll here because I've got a lot. So I'm gonna add a new model here, and with Olama, right, we just need to talk about have the target that Olama tag. So if you used Olama, you can do on your desktop, you can do Olama poll, and BGE-M3. This is an embedding model. It's purpose built for embeddings. So we'll just kind of copy this name here, and we'll throw that in the model name, right? And then we'll just tag that for embedding versus chat to let things know that it's an embedding model. If I were in an air gap scenario, I could go and find this model, a GGUF file format of this model. I can talk about that a little bit in a second here, and the SHA sum of it, and put that there. And then the tile would actually download that from either an external or internal repository, right, to work through the air gap versus if I just tag this here, then Olama is just going to do like essentially an Olama poll and go through the internet. So just depending on your network topology within your space, some customers have direct internet access and can do this. Some customers do not. So we, thanks to Long and team, we support pretty much, proxy, full air gap via, pull the models yourself. So, or just full internet. So kind of whatever your network scenario is, we should be able to work around type of thing. So I don't have this saved somewhere, so I'm just going to pull this directly. And then if we kind of the VM type here is, we'll get that to a second. I'm gonna tag this for this my main availability zone. I'm gonna call this CPU large. And then what else? We could up the model storage if we want here. This is where Long was talking about like request and like kind of rate limiting here through the AI server. So you could I could rate limit this if I wanted to. I could make a custom plan name and plan description via the marketplace. I'm just going to leave that for default because, whatever. We're testing things here. But like this could be useful if you wanted to add, some very descriptive type of things for your developers. You should just be able to hit save now, right? So really just a few things I needed to do to add that new model. That's saved. And then we'll kick off a deployment here too, but go ahead.
Yeah, and let's be clear here. So what we're seeing, this is coming from the platform engineer side of point, right? So the platform engineer is going to determine what models are available. This is not something that a developer can go do and add their own model. You've got to talk to your platform engineer to get this model available. But once you make this model available, then it becomes available on the marketplace for the developers. So developers, if you're using this and you see a model that you want to use that's not out there, you need to go talk to your platform engineers to get this out. This isn't something that you can do yourself.
All right. Yeah. So we could look at infrastructure config too. That's also another pretty big thing to call out and dive into. So I've made a lot of custom types here as well. CPU large. So I'm going to deploy 14 CPUs and 32 gig of RAM. So this is basically making like a custom VM type kind of within Bosch for vSphere. I can control the disk size and root disk and things. But when you're making like these kind of custom types type of thing, we can kind of toggle through different processing or like technology. So if we're just using CPUs, it's not going to install any of the NVIDIA drivers. If we're using vGPU, there's a whole path to cover how that works, to work with the NVIDIA license server and use the NVIDIA virtual GPU profiles. And then also if you have, if you want to use PCI pass-through, you can do that as well. That will install the NVIDIA open source driver as well along with that. So, but this machine type is just going to use CPU, so we're going to leave it there. And I can look at another one where we kind of dig into some of these other configurations here. So let's look at kind of vGPU type. So yeah, this P4024Q. I have some Tesla P40s in my lab, so I'm telling it to use the entire vGPU profile. A similar footprint, a little less CPU here, but then this is where I toggle the vGPU profile and kind of the grid name within vSphere. So then that tells Bosch how to go and request a host with one of those vGPU profiles available. And I guess let's cover PCI pass-through while we're here. So,
well, and before you move on, I mean, the other thing to call out here, we see the custom VM types for AWS, for for GCP. So we make it easy to enable the VMs that are available on the cloud that you're using as well.
Yeah. So obviously, you depending on what your IaaS provider is, you could toggle and configure as needed between different. I've gotten the question a lot too. Like this is like a 1-to-1 mapping. So like you install Bosch on vSphere and you're talking to Ops Manager on vSphere, the TPCF on vSphere, and the tile is talking to vSphere. It can't long unless I'm mistaken. It's not going to go out and try to. You can't from like vSphere try to deploy AWS VMs, right? It's tied to the IaaS provider.
Like the infrastructure you're using. We added a few defaults, but this is just like what we added all the different custom types because GPUs are all defined differently for each cloud. Ops Manager doesn't have GPU as a first class citizen right now, but as we evolve, it might have that feature.
Cool. And then let's just check a quick peek at like what PCI pass-through looks like. So this is like a 3090 Ti in one of my machines, which is like a commercial card. So you pass the vendor ID and PCI pass-through device ID in hex format. So I guess if we bring that over here.
Kind of read my mind. I was wondering, there may be people out there that don't understand what you're talking about here. Could you talk a little bit more in detail?
Yeah. So if I look here, I'm in vSphere, right? I'm gonna look. So I see this graphics PCI devices. It's in pass-through mode, but this machine or this device has a device ID which is 2203 and vendor ID of 10DE. That's where you can get that. You can also just kind of Google device ID of like your card, and you'll get some result back of like, there's like a database of all these different things out there. Usually,
I just give you the site, Nick. If you want to, like, it's Device Hunt. You can get the vendor ID from the video. You can get all the GPU hex numbers.
And what would be the differences just for the uneducated out there? So we know what CPU means, but when we're talking about vGPU and the PCI pass-through, what's the differences there? Are there performance differences, or is it just a different method of getting to it? What are the differences?
Well, so like the vGPU allows you to like slice a device in multiple ways, right? It's kind of like virtualizing the GPU. So I can say, like I want a fourth of it, I want half of it, I want the full card, that type of thing. And there's also it also enables things like vMotion as well at the vSphere level. So if you have a vGPU profile attached, like you can actually do vMotion. Like today, as it stands with a PCI pass-through, you're essentially like taking that hardware that's in the host and saying go directly to that VM, right, and like present yourself to that VM. But that kind of ties that VM to that host. So like vMotion breaks, right? Things like that. And then also you can't you're giving the full device to one VM, right? You lose the ability to kind of carve that up, so to speak. So it's kind of like I honestly, most of our customers have the NVIDIA vGPU situation already ready to go. So we see that a lot. There have been some customers too that use pass-through because it's like, well, this card's just going to be fully used no matter what, that type of thing. It's kind of like it depends based on what you have available to you and like what your workload profile looks like.
Okay.
That's kind of like the differences between the two. There's like pros and cons, I guess, to each type of thing. Let's see. Go back there, and that's where those vendor IDs come into play. And then typically you need to set this flag to true if you're using essentially if you have a card that has greater than 24 gigabytes of VRAM. I think it might be 16. Greater than 16, this card is 24, so you need to use the 64-bit like MMIO flag in the VM set. So we set that for you, and then you can calculate this. There are blogs that kind of show you how to calculate that. They're like core like vSphere blogs of when you're doing PCI pass through based on the card size, how much VRAM it has, like what number you need to set this MMIO flag, and this essentially like to the next power of 2, so 24 would be 60. But there's like a lot of very in-depth like kind of behind the scenes or like core like VMware administrator style blogs of like there's all these different settings. So you're like, this is all the math behind it. That's just essentially what we've done to get this to work. And like we've done this with an A100. I believe that's like a 40. This is probably the A100 value probably will be like 128 if I remember correctly as well. But yeah, that's just kind of behind the scenes with some of the infra config. What else here? Oh yes, if you have the vGPUs, we have integrations to talk to your NVIDIA license server. Whether that be you can run one on premises or run in the cloud, and then also you can host the NVIDIA Grid driver license as well. You'll have to download that yourself and host that on a file server. But that will come with the whole NVIDIA vGPU package, because you have to install the vGPU driver on the host as well. And typically, if you're not in the VMware admin space, your VMware admin will be able to help you out and get that going for you.
Okay.
All right. I think and this is too
we should go to beta integrations. I think seeing kind of
beta
cloud integrations.
Yeah. So this is very fresh. I think this is only in 10.0 and above, right?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're in this situation where you want to enable third-party models, so we kind of seeing a mix of some customers, only want to run on-premise, workloads. Like they can't use any public models whatsoever, period. Some customers, it's like a mix where certain data sets or certain applications have just like public data, or, loosely regulated data, or, there's not as many regulations around certain types of data. So they may have app workloads that can potentially use some of these public models, like from Azure, Google, or AWS, or OpenAI. So it's kind of a little bit of mix, and we wanted to, at least from what I understand, offer as many possible options for the customers, so it could be pretty versatile overall as a product. So you might be able to run like a certain, we have a store locator application that's using one of these public AI applications, because all the data it's using is already public data anyway. Like there's no risk at potentially exposing that to one of these public models, that type of thing. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of things that might be fully.
Also, in the case of let's say your company wants to get started with AI, and you don't want to run GPUs. It's expensive to run GPUs on the cloud or different clouds. But you have your AWS. You might just want to run a model if you're not having a lot of usage. Because it's on-demand pricing, so you can kind of have one or two apps that get started, and then you might want, and you start seeing that cost more than the GPU. You can switch over to GPU. But it also allows the tile allows you to broker the two applications, so you know which application is using the most money versus the least amount of money.
Yeah, that's a good comment too. Where if you're already running, Cloud Foundry within a cloud provider, and you have very it's like that tipping point of we're only doing a very limited POC. Yeah, we could help you broker to one of those models, and the cost could be potentially quite low versus running something full time. But yeah, and I guess that's another thing too. It's interesting. I think a lot of people kind of started out that way too, but we're starting to see customers come to us too, where they started out on some of these models, and they're like, wow, the cost of this long term is problematic, right? So then maybe what can we do on premises, or what can we do even within our own existing cloud spend? Can we spin up some VMs, and that's a very fine grained controlled cost versus paying per token. So again, it's I guess it's depends scenario, but it's also too where you are in your journey, versus if you're just starting off, just trying to and you have access to these public models, that they might be a good way to get that POC going as well. So, and I think that the great value here is that and I haven't added these models yet, but it's a similar process. It's slightly different. If you just go click add, you would, add the model name, in your Azure portal, maybe it's GPT-4.0 or whatever. And you give it the aliases, basically a base. So I think within Azure OpenAI, you can get your own base address and your secret key and things, and then you can add that, and that will show up very similarly we see in the marketplace. I have Apps Manager somewhere here, I think. So let's zoom in here. So if we go to the marketplace, right, those models will show up just along with all these other models I have deployed as well. so you can kind of route between whatever makes sense here. And I think we had Nicky and I had an internal call yesterday, and we have some teams that are doing some great work here. And I think one of the one of the kind of quotes was like, this marketplace construct with AI, it's kind of like this kind of candy shop for developers, where it's so easy to consume, and they can consume it in a safe way, in this controlled manner, that it's become a pretty effective tool. And then not only do they get easy access to these AI models, you get easy access to the things like Postgres, and get an on-demand Postgres database with PG vector support to have a very easy on-demand way to store those embeddings and things. And in addition to, like, it's a great application platform in general. So it's good to be reminded of things from time to time of how easy it is to get started, that type of thing.
Well, this is private cloud, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
when we look at what Tanzu Platform's bringing in, this is having an AWS or a GCP like experience, but on-prem. In some ways, I would say it's even better, right? Because you do get kind of these models that are vetted, that are provided by the company, that are provided by your platform engineers. That it's okay to use. You're not having to guess, am I okay to use this? What's the cost going to be? So, the whole point of this is providing that public cloud experience on-prem. The marketplace allows you to jump in and use what you need to use, but, have some guardrails around cost and around what you're going to be able to use there. So I don't think it gets any better. And again, with this in there, again, this becomes a GenAI service, right? This is a GenAI platform, fully functioning, where a developer can have everything they need to run GenAI for their applications.
Yeah. And while we're talking here, I forgot I added a new model, so let's just go check that out. I didn't actually click apply changes, so we'll go do that now. And we can maybe look at it here. Maybe it'll finish by the end of the show. I don't know. We'll see.
Now,
We'll see
one
how much,
gotcha that came up when we were looking at this before, Nick, right? There was a setting in there about allowing access out. If your model fails, you had to go and allow, internet access, because there was some stuff that needed to get downloaded. Did you walk over that?
No, we will. Let me get this. So I'm gonna do apply changes just on the tile. So let's get save. Yep. And that's gonna kick off Bosch to do its thing. But yeah, we'll go back to that. Once this starts rolling here. I really like this new UI too, by the way. It's really great.
This is twice. So when we first got we had a new UI that released, I think, with 6.0 that we got to showcase on here. We even surprised you, Nick, by showing the UI when we had, and now we're showing a whole new other. It was with Mark Fines, is with the Mad developer, right? But we got to show that, and now we're getting to show another new UI. So many firsts here on Cloud Foundry Weekly.
Well, yeah, because it was Mark. He was showing off some of his home lab stuff, and he was like, "Oh yeah, just throw up Apps Manager." I'm like, "What? What version of Apps Manager are you running here? Because I've never seen this version, right?"
Yeah.
So so that's pushing here, and a very similar theme happened to Ops Manager. So there we go. All right, so we were gonna check settings. Sorry, I totally forgot what we were gonna do. Let's go in there. So it's a critical add note. If you're running on public cloud infrastructure, is it under infra config or model config?
I think it was under infra config.
I think it's right here.
Oh, you proved me wrong.
I'm on infra. No, I'm on infra config. You're right.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So
I do a lot of my demos on GCP, right? So when I set up a foundation, for demo or for use cases, I set it up on GCP, and I was having some problems getting my models out. They were failing on the install. This is where Nick showed me. So I just wanted to put this out there. If anybody y'all using this on public cloud as your IaaS, this is important, or else you may end up failing to get your model out there.
Yeah. And that's that. Yeah, it's very like GCP does it like that. It's also probably how you have your public cloud infrastructure built out. You may be like, let's say, I think in Azure land, it's called like a hub and spoke deployment. So it's kind of more simulating a more traditional network, where you probably wouldn't do this. You'd probably just go through your, maybe you have, outbound proxy servers, or you have you know, Azure firewall setting up, you know, doing out like, you know, doing, you know, kind of egress filtering that way as well. Just all kind of depends. And I think too, one of our early in the day, one of our customers along too, they were using, I think, custom VM extensions for something similar to an AWS as well.
Yeah,
So
so
like,
that's why we have the custom VM extension. So it's all different for different ones. Like
yeah,
the assigned public IP gets me every time. I want to make a default, but that's not the same default to have because every
Yeah.
infrastructure is different.
Mhm. All right, yeah. So that was a good call out there, Nicky, because that could get some people. While this cooks here, let's talk about, like, so another big thing is like how do we get some of these files if we're on full air gap scenario, right? How do I get like somebody like, and really, you know, I can do files, like I can get files via Hugging Face in different formats, right? So if we're talking Ollama, right? Ollama, we want to essentially provide what we call I should go to the model config page. That would help the visual. So if we look at Gemma 2, I think, what did I use here? Let's use something else here because that works. But this is, I want to call out. All right, so Hugging Face, if you haven't heard of it, it's like a place that a lot of like all these models are getting posted to, and you can kind of get access to them. So if we look at, let's go to Hugging Face. Let's zoom. All right, so we want to get access to we're looking for a Gemma 2 9B model, and this is like full size. So this Bartowski individual here has been doing some good making of files here. So we go to his repo. There's a lot of GGUF file formats out there that you can go and grab. So you can go and actually make these yourself as well. There are tools to you know, like pull in the file, like the actual like core files from like Hugging Face, and then like do a conversion to GGUF file format. You can find models like via these repositories as well. The Bartowski seems to be a pretty popular source for these GGUF file formats. So I'm pulling some of these from him directly from his Hugging Face repo, and then you can kind of go and let's say I think this is the actual file we're looking at here. Go and get that, and you can actually just copy this download link, and then get the actual SHA-256 file or sum, excuse me, and then, you know, you can post that directly in there. So like, you know, I could have downloaded this and put this on my internal Minio S3 and hosted it that way, but I was, you know, trying to rapidly test different file, different versions of Gemma. So I would just, you know, I just directly put that URL into. So like the URL is the model downloader smart enough to work, you know, either if you want to go to the internet or go internally, and then pass the sum there. So that's how we're providing that GGUF file format without necessarily have to download that directly from the Ollama library. So that's kind of one way to work through kind of the air gap scenario. Another way, I think I might have this set up here, hopefully. Yeah. All right. So again, so for VLM, that's another inference engine we have running. I have this set up using the DeepSeek Coder LLM. It's based for kind of geared towards code complete and you know, code assistant type of things. But that's VLM. So VLM and Ollama are slightly different, where they're kind of like different inference engines, so to speak. Ollama, I think, is a little bit more wide ranging of accepting many different types of hardware. You know, you can run it on your laptop if you like, but like VLM is more geared towards, I would say, performance and things. So if you have access to like GPUs and want to run some models, probably VLM is probably going to be a little bit more performant, but it's a little less forgiving on like older hardware. Like for instance, my Tesla P40s, like it doesn't support running my Tesla P40s. which is like an older enterprise NVIDIA card, or I don't know if it officially supports CPU support or not, but that type of thing. So, but I have this tied to I believe a 3090 Ti. But what I did to work around here is that there's a whole process that you can do. Essentially, you can git clone the repo within Hugging Face. This is looking at files that aren't in GGUF file format, right? So if we just look at DeepSeek, I don't know. I'm just gonna go to one of their repos here. I guess it doesn't matter which one. We'll just go here. But essentially, you can files and versions. You'll get a link here to essentially git clone this. So a lot of these files, like these safe tensor files and things, these larger files are stored in git LFS. So essentially, the way to get a model without GGUF format for like a VLM air gapped, you'd want to git clone this repo and set up git LFS and make sure you pull the git LFS blobs correctly. Then you can tar up that whole repo and store it as a tarball somewhere within your organization. And then we'll pull that tarball, extract it, and then run the model type of thing.
I see an educational blog in our future on exactly how to go through and do this. But now let me ask you a question, Nick. When we go back and we look at all the models you got in there, there are a lot of, for example, you got like 4 or 5 different Gemma models. How does somebody go about evaluating what the differences are between these models, which one they may want to use and make available for the developers? I mean, do you have any tips or tricks on how to evaluate these models and what to look for?
Yeah. So if we go here, and I think Mark kind of called OpenWebUI out in a while, and shout out to Long as well. He was able to get this to work in native CF push, right? So we use this a lot now to just kind of, at least I use it a lot to test out different models, and we'll see if this is working. I've done a lot of things to this foundation, and I haven't tested this out in a while yet. So, all right, let's talk to Gemma 2B, right? Like, hello, who are you? Right. So a lot of it, like, it's going to be like the trade-off between what hardware you have available and how accurate you want the model to be, right? And so this hasn't been called in a while. So this is it's running on CPU, so it's coming back. It just took a while to fire up. Now it's like, tell me a joke, right? I know,
because I think this is something that would probably, it's one of those use cases where developers may get a little bit lost, right? I go in and say, I want to look at, Olama models. Well, there's hundreds of models in there, right? How do I start picking, and how do I start deciding which one that I want to use? How do I tell my platform engineer, hey, here's the one I think is going to be best for my use case?
Yeah. Well, a lot of that's still trial and error, but if you just look at base of, like, let's say I only have CPUs available to me, and they're maybe not the newest CPUs, right? So you want to go smaller, right? So Gemma 2B is probably the smallest Gemma 2 variant, right? The higher you go up, the more processing power it will take, and the slower it will respond based on your hardware, but the accuracy goes up of the response. So, like, we have a response from Gemma 2. Now, let's start a new chat. Let's go to Gemma 227B. So that's the bigger version of Gemma 2. So what did I say? Hello. I think I said, hello, who are you? Let's just ask the same question and tell me a joke. Right. So let's try that again. New chat. No, not 2B, 27B. Right. Not a bunch of white space. So hello, who are you? My theory says this is going to be a little bit more verbose than the first thing. And it's spinning up too because it hasn't been called. I'm pretty sure it's on a GPU. So it's also, and then now tell me a joke. This should be faster. So let's compare the two. I think the first block is bigger, right? A little bit more verbose. Yeah, so hey, 2B is, hey, I'm open. Yeah, it was just like maybe a sentence or two. I got a much more like larger response type of thing. And I think the joke the same? Let's see. I don't trust atoms. Yeah, I think the joke is the same. All right. So, but that's just like a quick example of seeing like different models. Now, the 27B is running on a GPU and the 2B is running on a CPU. So, and I think I've tested the 27B on my CPUs. Now they're really old CPUs, but like, you're not going to get a response basically. So that's
this
kind
is
of like,
almost opening up that feedback loop between developers and engineers again to say, hey,
Mhm.
I want to use this model, but then the engineers got to figure out what model is going to work best with the hardware that they've got. So it's almost like we're
Mhm.
reopening up that loop, that feedback loop between them to try to figure out what these are. And it
Yeah.
seems like, again, with all the models out there, anybody that's super smart, this would be a good way, how do you help to evaluate these models for what would be best for your use case scenario? Because there's overload. There's a lot
Yeah.
of models out there.
Yeah. Well, and they're still being released. I think AWS or Amazon just released Nova yesterday, or maybe the day before. I don't know. I'm getting my days confused. But yeah, so I mean, it's a very fast and paced and changing environment. But things like this, I think, make it really easy. Like Open Web UI is an open source project that we have a repo for it too. If you just want to see it push it, it's great to use this too. And it's got the whole, like, you can wire up the model. Like if you do service bindings, like, create bindings with the marketplace, it'll then take all those bindings and then inject that into the admin config and just have this like a little bit of play around. And a lot of the work too, like Chris Phillipson and I have been trying to see what we can get working with Sanford on like a minimum viable compute kind of spec. So we're still working through some of that too. And like, and I think you remember we had David Wu on a while ago, and he was kind of talking about different types of embedding models and things like that. So there's still a lot of work to do here, besides just getting the developer platform and the kind of the AI platform infra ready to go. And we can easily kind of, like, we've done this now many times in like half a day for like a net new environment. So I think it's, with like things like Ops Manager and with things like the Tile, it's really easy to get started and get that effort going. And then we have a whole kind of, wing of folks from like Tanzu Labs that, like, if you need help making these decisions and building these applications, we can help you out there. And then obviously in the middle too, Spring AI helps you from the developer framework of how do you simplify your code, or make it take the Spring developer, Java developer, make it really easy for them to start consuming interfaces like this too, as well. So there's still a lot of work to do. Go ahead.
We have a lot of observability stuff coming in the future of, like, how do we know this app is responding well with these things? So, like, I think eventually we're going to tie all this together and make it easy for the app developer to even know their own metrics. Right now, it's kind of geared towards platform engineers seeing how much is out there, what's being used. But I think this is important, like evaluating models, what works, what doesn't work. And we'll be able to, like, kind of caching will probably be a point as well, right? Like, if customers asking the same questions, can we cache some of those results? So this is a very new and exciting field. There's a lot of, like, observability. There's a lot of, like, startups out there, like, doing a lot of these, like, what model's good? And I think we're going to start building these features as part of this tile and making it easier for developer, platform engineers to all, like, work in sync of, like, hey, can I get this model? This model's not working for me.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and remember, this is GA, but it's not done, right? So we're going to continue to innovate on this. We're going to continue to release new features. I'm excited to see what you guys come out with. And I will mention, we've mentioned, Chris Phillipson quite a bit, Sanford. If you're interested in what Sanford is, go back and look at episode 34, where we talked about the CF tool suite and what Chris is doing with Sanford. But, one of the things that we talked about on that show, which I think is what Chris is working on right now, is what if you're able to use a chatbot with CF Tool Suite? What if I want to ask questions to a chatbot about what's going on with my foundations? And that's what Chris is working on today. I'm really excited to see what he comes up with, and I know you're helping him out quite a bit on that, Nick.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. I mean, there's just so many things to really, to cover and to, like, that are exciting. It's hard to even fit this in within one show. One more thing I want to add too. So, like, another, I think we haven't talked about a whole lot is, like, because we have Bosch, right? And Bosch is this, like, great infrastructure tool thing, right? another thing too is that we haven't really talked about it. Now, if you, I'm not going to do this because I'm really beating up my home lab up. Like I could scale this up to like 3, right? I'm not going to not do that. So then that's going to make 3 copies of that model. And because we have like AI server here, it's going to route between all 3 models. So like you can do a rolling Bosch deployment, and there'll be 3 copies of the model or 2 copies or whatever. So like you won't have that model be dead for any certain time. Bosch will do its normal like canary style, deploy the like stem cell update, OS level patch, or like new version of like upgrade, that type of thing. So that's cool. And then AI server at the controller level runs and this resource config. And this is kind of more of a, for people who are using this today, you can scale this up as well, and you'll run multiple copies of the AI server to load balance as well. So just like from a kind of HA style deployment, kind of be fully automated infra. I think that's another unique type of thing that we have. We have quite a large breadth of knowledge and years of experience kind of running this at scale. We're just able to use that great tech and apply it to GenAI as well. So gotta love
That's awesome.
Bosch and OpsMan, right?
Bosch is the superpower.
And Long knows Bosch all too well.
Yep. Well, I'm excited to see. So, anything new coming up that we should take note of, Nick or Long? Long, you going to be doing any type of road shows on this or anything new?
No, I think we've had great success with this on Cloud Foundry. We're thinking about expanding this kind of simplicity and capabilities to our Tanzu platform on the Kubernetes side, right? Like that's a work in progress. I think we're trying to kind of have future parity on the Tanzu as a whole, to have this working on Kubernetes, Cloud Foundry, wherever you're running, because we want to make it easy for developers, right? Wherever they are.
Yep. And I think, oh, go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, even at Barcelona, I think I talked to multiple TKGI customers who saw this too, and were like, "Oh, this is really cool." It's like, yeah, you should check it out. So, I guess even on a side note, if you're in the TKGI landscape, there's nothing stopping you from installing the small footprint runtime Tanzu application service and using that as a marketplace vector, and installing the GenAI tile to get that easy Bosch managed style deployments for your AI workloads. And you could even consume them via off Cloud Foundry app workloads as well. So you can deploy these models via the CF marketplace, and then create a service key, and then inject that into an app running on TKGI, or that type of thing. So a lot of more use cases, I think, coming out of this than we, as this thing continues to grow, more and more people see it, and are starting to think getting more and more use cases than we, at least it's a lot more greater scope than when we first started working in that hackathon, where I thought this would ever go. So, thanks to Long and everyone else on the engineering side who's working really hard to get this to GA.
Well, I think, when we talked about the last episode, we talked about KubeCon. The main emphasis of KubeCon was about AI, getting past the AI hype into doing what's AI right? And I think this is where we're standing out a little bit ahead. You couple this, what we just talked about with GenAI on Tanzu Platform, with Spring AI. We're allowing developers, you don't have to be an AI specialist to get started. You don't have to know Python to get started. Use Spring. It's a language use Spring AI, be able to try these different models without having to switch your code, being able to use the platform to try different models as a marketplace service. Making AI accessible is how we're going to see innovation in AI. And I know there's a lot of people out there working for companies that have a lot of really good ideas. They just don't know where to start. Well, Tanzu Platform is a good way to get started on AI. It isn't a generative AI platform now with this release. And I'm excited to see what the new releases come out with, and, the new use cases. We've got people coming up with new use cases and new ideas every day. We should probably start highlighting a few of those.
Yeah.
As our mad developer says, Tanzu Platform Cloud Foundry, a run anywhere GenAI powerhouse with GenAI and Vector Store as a service. Little heart emoji. Heart emoji is cute. Thanks, Findsy.
Yeah. But and Mark, ping me. I want. I need to get a look at your calendar. See what as we plan. I'm trying to plan some of the last shows for the year before we all go on break. So I have some ideas.
Yep. I won't be here
yeah.
next week. I'll be at Disneyland or Disney World.
Mhm.
I'm going to Disney. So
yeah. Oh, you'll have to let me know how the lines are. They're probably not as bad.
I
And
hope
it
not.
should be a lot
This was
cooler.
great. I went
What?
I went like 6 or 7 years ago, right after Thanksgiving. No one was there.
That's awesome.
Nice.
I'm going to keep my
Very
fingers
cool.
crossed that it holds true for this one as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the obligatory, this show came early. We did try to advertise that we were doing an early show out on LinkedIn, but the best way for you to find out if we're doing an early show and to be notified, hit the notification button, hit subscribe, let us know that you're out there, and take a look. That's the best way to come in. Look us up on LinkedIn, both me and Nick and Long. We've got, Twitter accounts. So you can, well, I guess I can't say Twitter anymore. X accounts. Sorry, Elon, don't sue me. Looking at X accounts. So reach out to us if you got questions, especially when it comes to Gen AI. You're laughing at me, Nick?
No, just the Elon comment. I still call it Twitter. I don't think I can ever call it X. But yeah.
Thanks.
Any closing thoughts, Long? Anything else you want to share to the community?
No, just it's exciting. We're GA, we're production ready, and we're gonna be trying to pump out new features and try to help your journey on with AI and safety and governance around that at the enterprise scale.
Yeah. And as you play with it, if you see something, reach out to us. Let us know. We've got Long here. We've got direct connects to people that are working on the product. So if you see something that you think would be a great feature add, or you see something that's not working quite the way you need it, reach out to us. Reach out to Cloud Foundry Weekly. Let us know. And we'll make sure that Long starts working on your request.
Feedback's important. I think it drives.
Yep. Cool. All right.
All right.
Well, I guess we're going to end the show. Everybody have a
Thanks.
good week, and I'll see you 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. Thanks, Long, for joining. And then we'll do a 3, 2, 1 CF bye. All right. 3, 2, 1 CF bye.